Hi guys, welcome back to part two of our series of mental health and art with Nancy. Nancy is a mental health professional and a mental health nurse dealing with uh, people with mental disabilities. So let's continue our conversation with Nancy.
I'm grateful for the Christians that did put their hand out for me and say let's get through this together
True.
somehow. Or I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to tell you you're a bad person for that and all that. So you know,
So the mental health part of it, I know because it's coming from a different ethnic background.
hmm
I do know, like, because it's like, I've had friends who are Hispanic who are literally scared, who reported to me when I was working at my previous employer, and they were literally scared to come forth and say, hey, my son is having a breakdown, I need this time off,
hmm
to take care of things for the family. It's like always beating around the bush.
hmm
In the Indian culture, right? Somebody asked me the other day about, and I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine about, you know, um, they learning disabilities.
hmm
And I said, I grew up in a time in India where learning disabilities, it didn't make even sense. Nobody even spoke about it,
hmm
learning disabilities. But when you look at it over here, they consider that as a mental illness. I can understand ADD, ADHD kind of thing, having that and having to go with that, but there's also anxiety, depression, which is a little
hmm
more further down
hmm
kind of thing. So, do you think that the art part of it actually impacts the brain for it to progress or decrease? Like, because if you wouldn't say that learning disability is going to end up being anxiety, or it's going to be depression, or it's going to be schizophrenia. But I guess a lot of people in the art community also find this, where if I go to a shrink and I'm being candid about it, oh, they're going to give me meds and they're going to
hmm
load me with meds, and they're going to try and suppress everything.
hmm
And, like the guys from the Beach Boys,
yeah.
I'm going to suppress everything. And then I'm going to be now with ADD. Then few years later, they're going to diagnose me with ADHD. They're going to diagnose me with schizophrenia or something
hmm
else. So, what do you think about that when you hear all these things from people?
I think that I don't think meds are the answer for everybody. um I think that you need to look at how livable your life is. Are you functioning? Are you functioning outside of, you know, your home? Are you able to hold down a job? Are you able? I mean, now obviously some people, I have a particular family member that she very much has ADD type of thinking and stuff like that, and but she's worked it out that she's got a job that she works from home, and so she can do those spurts and throughout the day, and it's not 8 to 5, because an 8 to 5 job she would hate it, she would be miserable. And so but um I think you really have to ask yourself what you want out of life and whether or not you're being functional. I love nursing.
Right.
I've taken breaks from nursing because of my mental health. I have times that I'm tapped out, and so in order to stay, you know, with nursing you can't make mistakes. You just can't, right? So if I feel myself slipping, I've taken mental health breaks quite a few times. I think that's what the artists need to ask themselves. I get not wanting to be, so, and mental health drugs, if they sedate you, you probably are on too much to begin with. It's your point is to get functional, not to get rid of your personality. Because
Right. So, for example, like I know a person who has, ma- I wouldn't, would I don't know what the medical term would be, but this it's anxiety, but I don't know if there's a term called manic anxiety or something like that,
Mhm.
where um, they cannot sleep, okay,
Yeah,
because their brain's running at 100 miles a minute.
yeah,
So they have to take their meds to sleep.
yeah.
But when they take their meds to sleep, they cannot function otherwise because, but if they don't take the meds to sleep in 2 3 days,
They're gonna be manic.
it's going to be this thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, but even the shrinks kind of try and manage it, kind of
Hmm.
thing, right? So that's where the main concern comes in, I guess, for people is like, it's like meds are bad, kind of, because they say it has an effect on your liver and your organs and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And that's, I understand where that comes in. So you see, do you think that therapy side of it, the art therapy and therapy side of it, is a big part of helpfulness to them, or
I think that if I if I were a therapist, then I
right,
knew that my client was an artist,
right,
I would use their art to try to, first of all, I'd find out so much about them from looking at their art. And then the other thing is, challenging them to maybe, branch out with different emotions, to I think therapy could be very helpful. But I the like I said, you have the goal is not to get rid of your personality. It's to be able to help you be functional. And like the liver stuff and kidneys and stuff, I do worry about that. But then I also am like, I know in one, like my child, if my child didn't have medication, I
I think
don't.
you got a message
Okay.
from, I think it's your better half.
um, but is it still, or did it stop?
It's still going on.
Okay. But I know for my child that struggled, would my child still even? I'd rather have a child with some kidney damage or some liver damage than a dead child, and
Okay.
that's what it comes down to with
Right.
some people. It's your life,
Right.
and you're you we want you here.
And I think most artists kind of what they do is they self medicate.
Oh yeah.
They self medicate, which is a big in the industry. I know because, and I'm saying this candidly, of course, you know, my folks probably will be mad at me when I say this. But when I was DJing back in the day, of
Hmm.
course, I was a lot younger and I could do it for this entire season. But we had a thing as DJs because I managed other DJs and stuff. We'd get drunk till the point that we puke everything out, so that was our way of self-medicating, so that
Hmm.
because when you're DJing, people will bring you a shot of tequila, people will bring you a shot of whiskey, and you can't say no.
Hmm.
Sometimes you'll chug it over there if they're not looking, but how many shots can you chug? So
Yeah.
it's like, so, but that was their way of self-medicating. I know others who, I know a friend right now who's going through something, and he was talking to me and he said, you know what, if I don't take, if I drink, I still know I cannot sleep,
Hmm.
right? But my body aches so much that the muscle relaxers don't work as well. The only thing that works is alcohol.
Hmm.
But if I drink, I know I cannot sleep. So it's a double-edged sword for him,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And he's like, my mind is running at 100 miles a minute. So I have to fight that battle every day, whether I have 6 shots of tequila
Hmm.
or I have a sleeping pill,
No.
and that's the difficult part over there. So
Yeah.
that's basically something that I think most artists have to go through as well. And it's like, from the musician standpoint, I guess it's more the fear of performance, kind of, in front of performing in front of 100
Mm-hmm.
people, 1,000 people, sometimes 10,000 people. And so I do understand their perspective of being medicated,
Mm-hmm.
and so when it comes to medication for artists, what's your take on, now it's legal,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like marijuana and psychedelics and stuff like that?
First of all, psychedelics, I'm never gonna. mm. Marijuana, I think, is fabulous for certain things, for Parkinson's, cancer patients, but I can tell you, and I've worked with these doctors very closely, because the nurses at the clinic are the ones who work with the doctors closest.
Right.
So many times, first of all, if you have bipolar, there's a very good chance that if you smoke marijuana enough, you're going to end up on a manic episode.
Okay.
It can actually cause psychosis with people with bipolar and schizophrenia. So, so I wouldn't suggest it. I get it, I do know people that have taken it for some depression and stuff. The only thing with it that I see as a problem is that, like, marijuana, notoriously, people talk about that they don't really want to do anything when they're on it.
Right.
Well, if you already have depression, you already don't want to do stuff. So
Right.
I don't see how that could help. Some people use it to help them sleep. So, I mean, I know it's legal. I know that it's, I know somebody who also has COPD that is dying from it, and that their drug of choice was marijuana. They never smoked cigarettes.
Right.
And so I'm a little sensitive to that one. But like I said, I think that there is a time and a place. I get upset when I hear people act like it's the cure-all for everything.
Because I've spoken to psychologists who say maybe you should be on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like friends who say that. I have a friend whose daughter used to work at a medical, not medical, I would say now it's considered medical marijuana, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
but at a marijuana place, only because she was a woman, it was easier to sell to the guys.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I have a friend who is, in the system of education. I would put it as a blanket of education, who says that there is a part of marijuana which is part of the edibles, which is not even traceable.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you have some professionals who are saying that it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Some professionals that are saying that it's bad, right?
Yeah, it's confusing.
And at the same time, you have people who are facing these issues with anxiety, depression, to a point where they cannot sleep or they cannot function, right? But at the same time, SSD or the disability side of it, the first question they ask you is, are you on any kind of drugs or alcohol? Mm-hmm. So that's that gray area. That's why I think most artists don't want to get their help that they need. So,
well, and like, you don't have to have the THC part of it. First of all, smoking anything that's not smart. Like, you're putting it in, you're inhaling smoke, it's just not, we know this by now. It's,
right.
Hundreds of years of people, well, thousands of years, people smoking stuff. But there are good things in marijuana, like CBD and in hemp. Even my company sells hemp oil, and it has 0.03% THC or something like that. So it's like barely, I don't think it would be even traceable. But the THC is what gets people high. Marijuana itself does have some benefits to it. But I mean, just like medications and stuff like that,
so you don't think that um, because mostly with artists and stuff like that, their main thing is depression, anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main thing in the art community. It goes on to drug and alcohol dep- uh, drug and alcohol dependency,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course it progresses into schizophrenia, paranoia, all that kind of stuff. So you don't think that they should, or they should, but under medical supervision? Because
Yeah.
I know for a fact, if I go down to Venice Beach, big art community,
Oh yeah.
right? There's doctors out there who you tell the doctor, I have trouble sleeping,
Oh yeah.
you'll get one right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah, well, Venice Beach, you don't even have to get a prescription. You just walk down the
Right.
road and you, you know.
Yeah.
But I think because I've seen so many people, I've seen it where people come in full blown psychosis. We drug test them. They're not on meth. They're not on cocaine. They're on marijuana, and it's because they already have some underlying, bipolar or whatever, and it just puts them in this paranoid state. So I think you have to be extremely careful with marijuana.
Right.
And that's my personal opinion, but that's based on what I've seen, and also for people who do struggle with drug addiction and stuff, it really is the one that they go to first, thinking it's harmless, and it can you lower and you if you inhibit your ability to say no because you're feeling good, it's easy to go to the next thing. They call it a gateway drug. It sort of is, because it's.
But then it leads on to other things, right? It's
Yeah. Because that eventually that high is not going to do it.
Not going to do it, yeah.
So then you're going to try something else, right. And that's the same thing, with meth. People have used it to stay up to begin with, and then eventually they get. And even people with schizophrenia have used meth because in the beginning, when you take meth, it can actually make your voices go away.
Right.
But then you get your own set of voices from the meth, and it's like, so.
I've heard a lot of artists take cocaine to stay up.
Yeah.
Because cocaine.
And it's in and out of the system a lot faster than meth.
It's in and out faster than meth, but the most successful artists, of course, have that ability to do $5,000 a gram or whatever the rate is. But the ones that don't, I think, use meth or crack as the way to get in. But then they don't understand that that's more detrimental to them in the long run.
Totally off topic, but alcohol and meth on the streets.
You're right.
It's not always just an addiction thing. A lot of people, like on a night like tonight, it's cold. There's going to be a lot of people that are drinking because it keeps the body temperature warmer. And then a lot of especially like women on the streets, they're homeless. They will do meth to stay up during the night so that they can protect themselves. It's very sad.
Yeah. It's also like I understand it's tough. I understand the scenarios, because especially with some industries more than others.
Mm-hmm.
The drugs aspect of it, especially with the actors and stuff, it's more the cocaine stuff because they have to be seen at all these parties, and they cannot shut down where, okay, it's 12 midnight, I'm going to call it a night, because that's where their business is and their bread and butter. So that leads to other things. It leads to, and most of them don't, they understand where it is. I've seen there are some actors in India who were really, really successful in their art, and they started with cocaine and everything else, and one thing led to another, and it led, like you mentioned, to schizophrenia. And the next thing you know, she's homeless on the streets, breaking into cars, and the cops had to actually catch her and take her in. And the first thing she says, I need some food to eat. She's lost millions of dollars on that thing and stuff. So it's
like Carrie Fisher. They found her. Now she's bipolar, they found her in somebody's backyard. You know,
Right.
like it just, how do you go from Princess Leia to, you know, thankfully she got better
Right.
in her life, but you know, mental illness is not, it's no joke. You
Right.
know, it really, and I honestly, there's been times in my life that my parents have probably saved me from that kind of, from getting into drugs, from getting into just being homeless because I
Right.
couldn't work. You know, I mean, my daughter was a baby when I first, her dad and I split up. I couldn't work. I was barely holding on, and
Right.
you know, so I had a wonderful support system, and I had my faith that just kept me from going down certain roads because I just didn't know how to reconcile that in my head. But um, you know, not everybody has that, and so.
So this is going to be the last this thing before, you give us your closing thoughts
Mhm.
on, and where people can get help and stuff like that. But art has a valuable role in mental health, and being recognized, it can also boost confidence, and it can also make us feel more engaged with the resilient part of it, like the cocaine and stuff. Besides these benefits of art engagement, in anxiety, depression, and stress, you know, as a gateway into it. What do you think about art as being more prevalent with, like you said, fun Fridays,
Mhm.
being more used in therapy?
Mhm.
Because when you talk to professionals, right? Maybe not psychiatrists or psychologists, but you talk to professionals, you know, they will be like, nah, it's a waste of time, kind of.
They act
And
like it's entertainment.
yeah, and even some psychologists will say, you know, the art stuff is good, but you can't make any money out of it.
Mhm.
Whereas nowadays with the content creation and stuff, it's, yeah, 50 minutes, so it's gone.
Sorry.
That's, that's fine. Yeah, but it's a conversation that we really enjoying. So where do you see that going with being more mainstream art therapy?
I think that it would be, it wouldn't be wise to ignore it because art is, you know, in rehab, not drug alcohol rehab, but just rehab from like surgeries and things like that. You know, they have physical therapy that works the muscles, and then they have occupational therapy, which is where you learn to live with, say you had a stroke, you learn to brush your teeth with your left hand instead of your right hand and stuff. I see art as a kind of occupational therapy because what you can do with that is you can help somebody tap into that side of them as a coping mechanism. I know my child, she paints, she she makes, you know, she, I call it coffee shop art because it looks like coffee shop art. It looks like it should be in a Starbucks somewhere. And you know, so you're there, she's able to express herself in a beautiful, deep, personal way. And you know, so I think that art therapy and things like Fun Fridays and all that, the we have to get our mindset out of this is just something to do, keep people busy. Even with, I worked with dementia patients for 10
Right.
years, okay? Dementia patients, they need that stuff too because they can express, they can no longer express themselves verbally the way that they did, but they can still, there's still things that your body just never forgets.
Right.
And so like my patient that I had that used to make flowers out of magazines and ties, and you know, he would paint when he had the opportunity to, and um, that was his communication with the world. So I think it's a very important thing. I think it's a very valuable thing. I think that where you have issues is when you throw in more fame, when you throw in untreated mental illness, because you know it's, you got to have some kind of treatment. Therapy doctors, everything. Like, that's like I said, have a toolbox. And, so you have those tools. And art can be one of those tools because you
Right.
can easily, I'm having a bad day. You know what? I'm gonna do something artistically. First of all, it takes my brain or my mind off of this thing that's going over and over and over in my head. It takes it off of that, but also it allows me to express myself in a real way.
Cool.
So
Yeah. So, some closing thoughts for you and for the lives. Basically, where do where can people get help? Where, um, because there's and some of the most famous people are the most dealing with their issues.
mhm,
Like, I hate to say it, but Anthony Bourdain, I love to watch his show
mhm,
on TV because he would travel to these places and he would meet and try out this exotic food, kind of. But apparently the medication, or he did not get the help he needed because we lost somebody too young.
mhm.
Whereas there are some actors who do that as well.
Yeah.
We lose them so young. So where can people get the help?
Well, the first place that is always available, it may not always be the greatest place, but if you're ever in a absolute desperate situation, if you want to hurt yourself or hurt anybody else, go to an ER. Okay, the emergency room, they have to treat you. They cannot turn you away. Um, there are certain ERs that are better than others, but because you want to if you can, if you have any way of knowing, you want one that has psychiatry on duty at all times. And then there are those mental health urgent cares, and there are mental health uh, the crisis stabilization units. Um, they even have rehab programs that are like, it's like going to drug rehab, but
Right.
it's for mental health. They're called crisis residential treatment
Okay.
centers, and you can go there for 30 to 90 days or whatever, and they help you learn to live with your mental illness. Um, there are, if you have insurance, I know, like, I don't know who all listens, but if you live in the Inland Empire in California, if you have even if you have Medi-Cal, you have IEHP, you can self-refer. A lot of places you can self-refer. You don't have to go through your primary doctor to get a referral to a psychiatrist. So call your insurance company. If you don't, call your county Department of Behavioral Health, because there are free counseling services, free psychiatry services. Um, and I think you're going to see more because the movement is growing
Right.
for mental wellness and or mental health. And um, and then if you want to watch me clean, it's Mental Wellness with Nancy on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. And
Let me
but
ask you, because you know, and my some of my viewers are international as
uh-huh.
well. Um, the suicide prevention line, is that a good resource?
Yes,
Because
and I can't remember the new numbers for it. It's a three number now, and I can't remember what it is. But
let me see if I can find it on this.
yeah, because I know other countries should have that too, and you can always reach out to people as well. You'd be amazed that, I mean, you know who's safe to talk to and who's not safe to talk to, generally speaking. That person that you can call in the middle of the night, that's the person that you
988.
988. I was gonna say 899. 988 is the suicide prevention hotline,
Right.
and they will listen to you, and they're actually better than calling 911 in some ways to talk to them, and they'll get you with the
I do know that sometimes they do send. the police department out
Yeah,
for a wellness check right away. Make
yeah,
sure, yeah.
yeah, and they're more likely to listen to them calling in than. Unfortunately, there's just I haven't had the best experience with 911 when we've had patients that need to be put on a hold.
Right.
If they come into our facility and they say that they're gonna hurt themselves, this is how they're gonna do it, and they're gonna do it tomorrow, and there's a certain criteria that they have. We have to put them on a 5150 hold.
Right.
And so then we transfer them to a hospital. But sometimes 911's not real helpful.
Because I've heard that, I hate to say this, but I've heard stories where the cops come in, and I know that they have a lot they're dealing with, especially with, you know, the violence on the street and stuff like that. But there have been cases where I've heard of stories. I don't know how far they are true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so I'm saying I've heard of stories where they've come in and they say, you know what, you should get the help, but we don't really want to take you in because
No, they don't.
Yeah, because if we take you in, we have to handcuff you, put you in the back of the car, and then
They have to stay with them at the hospital till they get admitted. That's what it comes down to. It's the time. And I've had a 911 operator tell me one time, well, it's not illegal to kill yourself. And I was calling on behalf of somebody else, and I was like, wow. So,
it's not illegal to kill yourself, but at the same time, euthanasia is still a crime.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, how does that work in California? That's because we have assisted suicide here and everything. So,
but anyway, that's a different
whole
block.
thing is that there's always somebody. Go to a church, go to a synagogue, go to a mosque, go somewhere, go talk to your friends. Make sure that you talk to your friends and they know that they can come to you. There are resources out there to help, and nobody should ever have to feel like they're alone. And that's the ultimate thing is mental illness does take people's lives, and it's preventable.
Right. It is preventable. We need to just talk to somebody, like I said, talk to somebody, use that as an expression.
And you said in the artist community, it's common, we've got to start talking to each other so that, because if it's common, then chances are if you do reach out to somebody, they're probably going to understand and relate.
But the way I guess they look at it is, I've had an artist tell me, hey, I've been on meth and this and that. And I'm like, hey, I hope you feel better. And then the next thing I know is that same artist is saying, can I have $10?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hope you feel better. Try getting the help, and they don't get the help because they feel that that's a taboo still. But thank you, Nancy. It's been great. I'll put your TikTok on the actual YouTube video so you can,
Cool.
spread the word as well. And, if anybody needs to reach out to Nancy, I guess you can reach out to Nancy.
Yeah.
Reach out to me if you need help in getting some resources, and I can find it as well. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And let us know if you need help. We're always here. Thanks.
All right. Thanks.
Let me stop this. Okay. Yeah. And this one. Oh, there we go. And this one stopped automatically.